Initially, Chabad was a small sect that arose in the 18th century in response to the persecution of Jews by Bogdan Khmelnytsky. Why Khmelnytsky began to persecute the Jews? In the 17th century, Jews rented Ukrainian lands along with serfs and forced the serfs to work 6 days a week instead of 4. The peasants became more and more impoverished, were despised, and became literally servants of the Jews. Therefore, under Khmelnytsky, Jewish pogroms began. The Jews were forced to flee, but harbored a mortal resentment. Let's also mention Bogdan Khmelnytsky, a hero of Ukraine, whose monument stands in the center of Kiev. According to our statistics, Bogdan Khmelnytsky killed about 3,000 Jews. Everything has to be paid for sooner or later. The time comes and creditors come. It is naive to think that hatred, and especially blood, will not be exacted. Certainly, they will be exacted, just everything has its time. Sometimes, like any debt, this debt also has a grace period, but not more. Nobody has forgotten anything. One can say, well, what do these Ukrainians who live here today have to do with it? What is their relationship with those that were during the Second World War? Here they are poor and unfortunate. The Russians attacked them. The Russians were destroying us as well. We must remember the Black Hundred and so on. History account is not closed. You must be responsible for your deeds, for your actions, for your offenses, for your deeds and deeds of your ancestors. The sect arose at the junction during the reign of the last rabbi of Chabad, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. The sect reached unprecedented influence and spread throughout the world.
אנחנו גודלים פי 2 ל-20,000 תושבים בתוך פחות משנה וחצי.
אז היה בורך איתך שיהיה פי 2 כאשר המצב עתה. עד הצבא רצות שזה פי 2 ממה שרואה בעבר.
The last rabbi of Schneerson had no children. Chabad members proclaimed him their king Moshe and are waiting for his resurrection. He is expected to resurrect on his throne in the Dnieper, where the huge center of Chabad menorah is built. Chabad is headquartered in the US, where its members have infiltrated every key government body. There are many millionaires and billionaires among the rabbis and ordinary Chabad members in the US who have a strong influence on the politics of the country. We are a remarkable country because Jewish community has brought its values into America. I bet 85% of all bright events in Hollywood and social networks happen due to Jewish leaders of the industry. Chabad rabbis visit apartments of US President and US Congress as often as if Chabad was a state religion of the US. Chabad controls Federal Reserve System of the US and International Monetary Fund. We have good reasons to consider all world leading bankers to be Jews, and what's more, Chabad members. Here is the list of world richest bank families. Rabbi Dr. Naftali Berg, Chabad member, referred to as our super weapon, the pride of Chabad, former director of the Department of Scientific Research at the US Department of Defense, developed the HAARP system, which is complex of climatic, geophysical, and psychotronic weapons. Bill Gates, an organizer of the man-made pandemic who wanted to vaccinate the entire population of the planet and reduce the population with vaccines, is also a member of Chabad. A photograph has been published in which young Bill Gates received a blessing with $1 from Rabbi Schneerson, the last rabbi and Chabad Mosher. Chabad has also entered the Vatican. Cardinal Karol Wojtyla, Pope John Paul II, was a Jew and represented the interests of Chabad. Chabad is sponsored by oligarchs around the world. The largest sponsor of Chabad sect in former USSR countries is Lev Levayev, the Israeli billionaire and diamond king. Levayev alone established 345 Chabad centers in the cities with synagogues, educational institutions, canteens and libraries. Experts believe that Chabad, with its worldwide network of shlohim, messengers of the Lubavitcher rabbi, is an affiliate of the CIA and Mossad. Indeed, Menachem Mendel Schneerson contributed to Pentagon for many years. Chabad creates its offices even in the most remote parts of Latin America hardly visited by Jews. It has become known that a worldwide drug mafia network is being created in this way to provide Chabad with funding. Several scandals have taken place with Chabad rabbis captured while transporting drugs. In 2001, Interpol exposed a network of drug dealers with Chabad Jews being their backbone. They transported and disseminated synthetic drug ecstasy. Transporting of the drug from Poland to Holland was original and elusive. Chabad members were not searched at customs because they disguised drug as objects of their religious cult, which non-Jews are not allowed to touch, or drugs were transported under their traditional black hats. A network involved in millions of US dollar laundering. The Colombian cocaine king's money was revealed in the US. That was the most powerful and most intricate structures that has ever interacted with the Colombians. Very respectable Chabad people headed the criminal gang. Chabad is indeed a very influential organization. The very essence of it is debatable and combined. This is partly a criminal structure which, according to many facts and sources, is closely associated with drug business. Repeatedly, Chabad rabbis have been captured with drug consignments. It is very likely associated with criminal organ transplantation, with kidnapping. On the other hand, they are a very influential division of Western intelligence services, American, Israeli, who collect information and exert influence. They certainly are connected with globalist circles, which set themselves the task of determining our common human future. The fanatical Chabad sect has also infiltrated the very pinnacle of power in Russia. According to Edward Hodor's, the 1991 putsch and further destruction of the USSR took place in strict accordance with the Chabad plan. He learned about that in New York at a meeting with Menachem Mendel Schneerson, chief rabbi of Chabad. Here's what Hodor writes: I was amazed when the Chabad people dedicated me in detail to the behind-the-scenes of the August 1991 putsch and events that followed. Before that, I had sincerely believed that the GKChP members were to blame for everything, but in New York I realized the truth. There I was confidentially informed that the Soviet Union was living its last days and what will follow its collapse. Even the republics were named, which leaders were to put their signatures under the sentence of the country. We have already quoted Larouche talking about traitors infiltrated by the West into the top of the Soviet Union. As we understand now, Chabad agents were active in Soviet Union too. Gorbachev, for example, caused incredible damage when began destruction of the USSR. By the way, he later admitted that. Back in 1999, at the American University in Istanbul, you said that the goal of your whole life was the destruction of communism. Let us know that Jews, Chabad members obviously, started to actively infiltrate into the Communist Party apparatus in Gorbachev's period. The person has numerous awards and prizes from the USA, the West, Israel. Gorbachev said a noteworthy phrase in his last New Year address to Soviet people. The coming year is special. The fate of our multinational country will be decided this year. Therefore, Gorbachev made it clear that in the new 1991, the Soviet Union was to cease its existence. This proves pre-planned nature of the operation. I cease my activities as President of the USSR. The color revolution committed by Yeltsin and the Western intelligence services in October 1993 was obviously also planned in advance. I know that for many of you, this night was sleepless. I know that you understood everything. The Jewish financial class, enriched by robbery of the national heritage of the Russian people, allocated a lot of money and their militants to suppress popular resistance to the criminal anti-constitutional regime. Thousands of CIA and Israeli special services and the Jewish military terrorist pogrom organization Beitar took part in the October events. According to open sources, Jewish paramilitary brigades participated in the coup of 1993 in Russia. We saw that with our own eyes, and we have photographs showing people in civilian clothes tried to break into the Russian White House, and they had a flag with the Star of David, the flag of Israel. I personally saw it. They say Beitar was there. I did not take them prisoner, so I can't specifically say who they were, but Beitar units and special unit of Jericho were active there. Plus, even though it was not widely reported, but it was covered in press, American Marines from the legation guard of the American embassy were killed and injured. It was in press. I have the newspapers. The question about snipers. Unknown snipers were working. We did not have a single sniper rifle. This I tell you responsible. Where did the snipers shoot from? The snipers were working from the Ukraine Hotel, from the high-rise building on Vastania Square, and from nearby streets. They ran past. The clatter of feet in boots was heard. They said, "There are people in the basement somewhere." That is, they were looking for us. Another replied, "Hell with them, there is water in the basement. They will croak anyway." The first said, "Let's throw a grenade." The second answered him, "To hell with them, we'll still shoot them all. If not today, then tomorrow. Not tomorrow, then in a month. We will shoot dead all Russian swine." That's what impressed me. They wanted to kill the Russians. So it wasn't the Russians who said that, and they left. Here we prayed to God, and we dodged a bullet, they left. As we later calculated, 1,500 people died. The stadium was covered in blood. People who lived on the upper floors of nearby houses told that they could see it from their windows, and they were also shot at if they were seen in the windows. The massacre of unarmed Russian people began with an attack by armored personnel, carriers manned by Beitar crews. The first bursts killed about 40 unarmed people who spent the night in tents near the Russian White House. armored vehicles ran into tents, crushed there not only sleeping men, but also women and children, for many Russian people came to defend the White House with families. It is clear that unarmed citizens could not resist military machinery. Soviet citizens were destroyed brutally in a fascist way, and then they presented the coup as a will of people. That is an example of chutzpah, unparalleled lies and arrogance. So we must understand what is presented to us as a historical event and allegedly happened by itself often is a performance organized from abroad by infiltrated agents. We are said that it was the people of Russia who carried out the coup of 1991-1993, that the Russian people themselves rejected socialism and came to capitalism, that it is we who elect the presidents. Yes, in fact, foreign and hostile people pushed the coup and tricked us into accepting it. 1991 was apparently not chosen by chance. On Nisan 28th, April 11th, Chabad launched the official Mosher campaign. That day, Schneerson delivered a speech and gave a new and immediate instruction to his adherents. There is only one thing left for me, to transfer this task into your hands. From now on, you must do everything possible for Mosher to come today. There is evidence proving that since the coup, Chabad members celebrate Hanukkah in the Kremlin annually since 1991. The holiday celebrates victory over enemies. The first celebration took place on the 1st of December 1991. The Jews celebrating in the Kremlin connected with New York and Tel Aviv through a teleconference. The teleconference was personally attended from New York by Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the head of Chabad, who announced, the Belovezhsky Agreement was signed on December 8, 1991, the last day of Hanukkah celebration. We believe that the events of 1991-1993 in Russia are the history of our country. In reality, it is a secret plan of Chabad and the CIA. Rockefeller brought down the economy of the USSR, dragging it into debt, and the state power was brought down by CIA agents paid by Rockefeller, apparently also Chabad members. After the coup, Chabad members with generous bribes penetrated all levels of government, began to control the media, the most important sectors of the economy and finance. Putin has given this fanatical sect the green light and is providing all kinds of support. Chabad emissary Beryl Lazar arrived in Russia from New York and hardly spoke Russian. Putin quickly arranged Russian citizenship for him, and now Lazar has 3 citizenships: American, Israeli and Russian. And then, with obvious assistance of the Kremlin, Beryl Lazar seized the position of Russia's chief rabbi. They simply organized a meeting of the Jewish community, which was attended mainly by foreign citizens, and removed chief rabbi Adolf Shayevich. Here is what Shayevich himself said.
Вызвали Лазара и через 10 минут объявили, что сейчас будут выбирать главного раввина России. И вот, 2 десятка раввинов, из которых 18 иностранцев, его выбрали.
In a March meeting in the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin congratulated those present on a significant date, the 100th anniversary of the birth of the 7th Lubavitcher Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, King Messiah for the ages. Edward Hodder's The Jewish Syndrome. According to the Jewish press, at least once a month, Putin invites Chabad rabbis to the Kremlin and inquires in detail about the well-being of the Russian Jewish community. Putin donates his monthly salary to fund the construction of the Jewish Museum in Moscow. Samara Rabbi Shlomo Deutsch complained to Putin about the problem he faced trying to open a Jewish school. Paperwork was dragging on on in every possible way. Putin promised to sort it out. The next day, the head of the city informed the rabbi that all the necessary documents were ready. The school was open. At the same time, Shlomo Deutsch is openly friends with the enemies of Russia. Samara journalists write about him. Wait a minute, but the US is participating in the special military operation against Russia through Ukraine. That this is a buffer war. That is, Ukraine plays the role of a buffer through which the states oppose Russia. Consequently, his activities are contrary to the interests of Russia and its people, aren't they? This is also proved by the following fact. At the very height of the special operation, on the 3rd of March 2022, Deutsch celebrated the wedding of his daughter Raquel, who was married to the son of a rabbi from the Dnipropetrovsk region of Ukraine, Menes Templar, at the Chabad headquarters in New York. That is, Chabad in Ukraine and in Russia is subordinate to New York? The two Slavic peoples are fighting among themselves, and Chabad pursues its interests in both countries. The interest of Chabad is to seize the territories of our countries and build their own state there, the new Israel. The Putin Chabad has ousted Orthodox Jews from everywhere, often with the help of local authorities and governors. Does that not prove their merging with Chabad? In Samara, it was the local authorities who gave Chabad Rabbi Shlomo Deutsch the synagogue, which had previously belonged to the Congress of Jewish Communities and Organizations of Russia. Zalman Deutsch, the chief rabbi of Perm, brother of Samara Rabbi, received for free land worth 73 million rubles from Perm government for a Chabad synagogue in the city center. This is the same land plot that was assigned the address of Engels Street 35. In fact, it had always been considered the Ponomarev Square. The square is obviously neglected, but still it has been a place of rest for local residents. This plot of municipal land with a cadastral value of 73 million rubles was transferred to the Lubavitcher Hasidim sect. This happened in 2016 under pressure from Governor Basargin. Rabbi Zalman Deutsch was visited by two security officers from the Center for Combating Extremism. He boasted to me that these were not ordinary employees, they were heads of departments. Their communication was rather strange. Several times my colleague and I witnessed Zalman yelling at them. They were in a subordinate position in relation to him. They did not object to him, they did not stop his cry. There was a feeling that the guilty schoolchildren were summoned to the principal's office. That is, Chabad took control of the law enforcement agencies. Obviously, this happened after the destruction of the USSR. In 1991, Gorbachev made the traitor Vadim Bakatin head of the KGB of the USSR, who admitted that he headed the KGB in order to destroy it. The most devoted to the motherland employees were fired from the KGB under Bakatin. The FSB, in its current form, was created by Yeltsin, a protege of the world's moneybags and Chabad, only in 1995, which makes it clear who serves the FSB. 40,000 Israelis were infiltrated into the Russian army after reform committed by Serdyukov under Putin. What's more, they were professional soldiers who had served in Tzahal army. And in 2008, the position of chief rabbi was introduced in Russian army. There remained hundreds of millions of shells in excellent condition in warehouses after the Great Patriotic War. Massive and regular explosions of warehouses were not accidental. It was a system. What was that? A diversion to make Russia incapacitated? The perpetrators of the explosions either have not been found, or the warehouses allegedly explode from an accidentally thrown cigarette. Other experts report that blowing up an entire warehouse is very difficult. The shells are stored unloaded. Plus, there is a security security system, lightning rods, maintaining a distance between stacks, and the like. In order to blow up the warehouse, it was necessary to bring the shells into combat condition in advance and arrange the ammunition in advance in the right way. All those can only coincide if everything is covered at the state level. And now we are told that the Russian army has a shell hunter. Do you recognize the handwriting? The Chabad sect has entangled entire Russia. 90% of the rabbis in the country, according to Ber Lazar, are members of Chabad. Ber Lazar's 3 sons have already become chief rabbis of Krasnodar, Sochi and Simferopol.